right, everybody, let's begin. This is the great Eric Delgado. He's fortunate to give us some of his time. Eric and I, we've been coaching together for quite a while now, haven't we, Eric?
It's been, I would say, at least between 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, and when you first started working with me, and again, guys, if you know me, I don't take the credit for your success. My job is to come up with a game plan, blow the whistle. You guys do all the running. And Eric's done a lot of running. So, Eric, the story I'm telling everyone is that when we first started to get together, you were making about 350 a year, single agent type of person. And your goal this year is for you and your team to do $1 billion worth of real estate. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Now,
That's
I got to
correct.
tell you, I want to start with the end of this interview at the beginning to show you why this guy is so successful. He is about, near as makes no difference, 15 miles away from those terrible fires in California. And he was constantly calling me and other people. This is the difference between leadership and ego. He was constantly calling me and other people saying, what do I tell my troops? How do I get them motivated? How do I get them focused? And all they see is black smoke. And if you
Mm.
guys want to understand why this guy is so successful, is because he was more concerned about getting his team making money because they always got to make money. And it's one of his greatest things that he does. So, Eric, give everybody your story. Give us your 1 minute Eric Delgado story from rags to riches.
So, guys, thank you for having me. I really appreciate you taking the time. Steve's been probably one of the most important figures in my business over the last 15 or so years. I'm honored to have him be with you guys this afternoon. Sorry about the background. I'm not in my office. I'm currently in Irvine. I had a meeting that I needed to urgently attend to, which, by the way, Irvine's about an hour and a half from my Los Angeles home. So just for context, my name's Eric Delgado. I live in Sherman Oaks, California. We have a few offices in the San Fernando Valley. It's about 15 minutes on the other side of Beverly Hills. Last year, we closed the year with about $600 million of volume, 845 sites. We wrapped up the year with a group of in production of about 180 real estate agents. Today, we have 360 some odd agents throughout Los Angeles and its outskirts. Steve mentioned we're fixing to sell and serve $1 billion worth of volume in terms of buyers and sellers in 2025, and so that's kind of where we are today. Steve asked me to write down some notes as to the beginning, the middle, the end, and I'm prepared to do so. And unless you have a couple questions, Steve, I'd like to just kind of go right in.
Go right in, Eric, because we're all ears, man.
So I'll start with this. Today, I run our operations, and that's a lot more of a business aspect of things versus sales. But I'm very heavily involved with training our people. Training and pouring into the individuals that we serve is the most important thing for me. So we do that daily. Started the industry 2005. Got licensed in 07 and been selling real estate since then. I'll tell you something that I don't talk about much, and it's a fact. When I got in the industry, I got in as a buyer's agent. So I was a 100% buyer's agent for about a year and a half, until I got the opportunity to open up a real estate franchise, a national brand. And when I did that, I realized that as a buyer's agent, you can't leverage or delegate the activities. In order for you to have a business, you have to be listing based. And so I was forced to go from a buyer centric business to a listing based business. And we literally cold turkey stopped serving buyers. In fact, at the time, I had a team of 4 people. And when any buyers would either come to our open houses or when we would run into a buyer over the phone, they were instructed to let them know that they can't serve them. They are more than welcome to receive a referral from us for a different buyer's agent, but we couldn't serve them. I'll tell you, necessity is the mother of invention. And for us, we decided to make money with what is the absolute lowest cost of transaction. So our big thing is we do outbound prospecting, and we do business with realist homes, so expired, canceled by owners. We started doing this at a high level in 2000, I'd say about 11, 12. And since then, no one in our area of Los Angeles, about 50 miles out anywhere, lists and sells more realist homes than we do up until today. And it's because we put a lot of resources, time, and energy into that space. One of the biggest things for me was exposure. And I have to share that when I first got in the industry, I got in the industry in 2005. And so we're clear, I'm I was 15 and a half years old. I went to work for a mortgage broker, and I'm kind of going back briefly because this is one of the, what I wrote is exposure. So for context, the person that I worked for owned a mortgage company, an escrow company, and an appraisal company. And the guy was generating about $4 million of income a year net. He was 25 years old, and his name was Eric. And in my mind, if I can generate 10% of what Eric was generating annually, I was going to win. So I went from being a scholar athlete and hoping to go into SC and go school of Marshall and get a business degree to all in real estate. So by the time I turned 18, I got my license, and that's when I began my buyer agent trajectory. But I say this to say this, that for me, from the beginning, it was really important to delegate every aspect of the business that didn't involve prospect, lead follow-up, and sign contracts, just bar none. And so when we set out to build out the team, I created a space for the people that were in my world to have a routine and a very specific schedule, morning and evening. It was a split shift of only involved in activities that generated conversations with people that had the ability to sell their home while they were working. Everything else, transactions, administrative support, processing, was delegated to another individual within my organization that was employed by the company. Here's the idea. A business like that is very staff and resource heavy. So for, I'd say about 6 months, while we had stacked up a bunch of inventory, we weren't making any money because listings take a little while to sell. During those years, they averaged about 50 plus or minus days on market before they would sell. And so imagine having a monthly overhead of about $20,000 between an operations person, a listing manager, runner, I'd say carrier, but he's a runner, and a transaction coordinator without generating income. And it could really start to really dig a hole in your pocket financially. I really didn't care because I had seen what building out a business looked like. And it takes money, it takes a good system and process, and it takes the belief that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So fast forward a little more, our business got consistently to a point where we were serving about $200 million worth of business. At the time, the average price point in my area was about $630,000. So it's quite a few transactions with about 15, I'm not going to call them buyer agents, but agents within our organization. And some of those folks, actually about 90% of all of them are still within my world. And if I look back, we were all glorified telemarketers. Like all we did was we'd cold call. Like that was just it. If you were working, you were calling, you were talking to people, you were asking to have the ability to present to them so that they could sign a contract. And we were charging 3.5%.
Yep.
And you know what's crazy today, and this we'll talk about this a little later, but today we have the largest Zillow account in Los Angeles. It's also propelled some of the accolades and growth that we are experiencing at the moment. But at the time, I would think of Zillow and I'm like, why would anybody pay Zillow any amount of money on a monthly basis to get a buyer lead, chase the lead? Well, first of all, present to the lead, chase them to present, show them property, make offers, negotiate it, and see the deal across the finish line. It made no sense to me. because we made a lot of money listing and selling property. Today, we make a lot of money listing and selling property. We've incorporated that aspect of business into our world, and it's actually become quite lucrative. But that's not how we started. And so, just kind of, if I want to pause there for a second, Steve. Last year, based on transactions, I mentioned earlier that we closed the year with 845 sites, 600 million. Everything that I'm about to share with you, the buildup, right, got us to, in Los Angeles, per transactions, West Los Angeles, by transactions, we were the number one real estate brokerage in 2024. So we're super excited about that. It's quite the it's quite the testimony to the people we're in business with, because they work hard. But here's what I like to share. I never intended to be in business on the broker side of things, because we make a lot of money listing and selling property. I've always known that the brokers broke because they marginally make money and they're not serving people. But the world, just my life and just everything that just came at me, just started pushing towards that direction. It takes a long time to have the money you make through people equal the money that you make as a highly skilled listing agent. I don't care what anyone says. So if you're on this call, just know that it is not easy to make money through people. And it's a constant battle of pouring into people, growing them, and working towards making a profit. Steve, so real quick, for the group here, I can kind of continue through that trajectory of when we sold our first $1 billion worth of business. That was exciting. When we crossed 3,000 transactions as a cohort, that was exciting. Yep. When we started expanding to today we have 7 locations, that's exciting as well. But what aspect of any of those things would you like me to focus on? I can kind of,
well, let's talk about a couple of things that you said. And I don't know if everybody heard this. It was so important. He said, we're basically a glorified telemarketer, and we had people that prospected in the morning and people who prospected at night. Did you guys hear that? And Eric, you and I talked about that. So could you share a little more of what the thought process that we worked on, why we separated, why you decided to have morning prospectors and evening prospectors, and what was the result of making that decision?
Contacts per hour. I mean, there's no two ways about that. If you're going to do the activity, do the activity when you have a higher probability of people answering. So in our area, people would answer between about 8 o'clock to 11:30. And then again, about 4 to 7. Between 11:30 plus to 4, it's ghost town. No one really answers. So if we're going to do the activity, why would we do it when no one's answering? Because then it's deflating. It demoralizes our people. They're better off taking the time to go to lunch, maybe go to the gym, run their errands, do the things that they need to do outside of making appointments, following up on people, and presenting.
So let's shift to Zillow Flex. You're a Zillow Flex team. Not everybody in your organization gets the Zillow Flex leads. You and I talked
30%.
about that. You have to have a criteria. Would you, without going too much specifics, could you share what criteria they have to have these, what are more expensive type leads?
Yes. So the Zillow Flex opportunity comes to you when you have the metrics through Zillow. You're a market-based pricing individual, so you pay them money per lead. And after a while of great performance, then they offer you the opportunity to be a partner with you, and you pay them a big referral in the back end. It's not very profitable, and I'm the first one to say, like, in general, it isn't, but it is a vehicle to scale. So the people that have aspirations of scaling, it literally will force your business to scale. In fact, if you don't scale it, you're going to lose it. Sounds a little weird, but that's what that business looked like.
Yeah, either you move up or you move out. They don't let you be the same.
Right.
So let's talk about your leadership style, because here's the funny thing. He is one of the most polite people I know, except when we're having one-on-one conversations. Then only Tommy Love drops the F-bomb more than Eric. And so, Eric, there was many times when you and I would talk and I'm so sick of this blank and crap. You know, I could make $4 million a year just listing and selling property, and the people I have aren't working. I'm shelling out hundreds of thousands of dollars, and these blankety blanks aren't working. And of course, we just kept talking. You're
Yeah.
only going to make 3 or 4 million because you're out of time. You're always limited on how much you can make by time, unless you can leverage you through a team. And you were smart enough to keep leveraging. Um, so the question is, what do you bring to the table? So an agent's in your area, they're trying to decide where they go. Why would they
Yeah.
want to go to your organization versus the other brokerages? What do you do differently that makes that agent come to your place and make more money?
We get two types of agents. Well, three rather. The first group is the beginner group. They come to us because they want to have Zillow opportunities. And the reason why the beginners come and get that is because their margin on their split is very low. It is what it is. The two groups we focus on is the intermediate group that has been in the business for a few years, has wanted to generate more listings than buyers, has struggled and has not been able to crack the code when it comes to generating listings at a high level. We put them into our system, and very quickly they learn the behavior, the conversation, the activities they need to learn in order for them to become a more listing based individual, eventually 50-50, and then above like 70 listing, 30 buyer if they choose to. The third group is the people that are already winning. They know how to make money. They have a database that they feed off of, but they don't have leverage. So a lot of people have a really hard time hiring staff, really hard time. To pay someone $5,000+ a year, 80,000 locally for an operations director, it's not that easy. But your business isn't going to scale unless you have help. We help those people source, hire, onboard, train, and keep them accountable because we've done that. You see, we came to this industry on the broker side of things from a team perspective. Most brokerages opened up as a brokerage and then they just become a broker. Well, we were a team and we were forced to become a brokerage, and we were only forced to become a brokerage because we decided to put the resources back into our agents' listings and market our clients' homes. We were paying a lot of money to the former franchise I was a part of, and the exit was not pretty. In fact, it was extremely difficult. We actually exited last year.
Yeah, that
it was
was
our
an
first full
uncomfortable
year.
year for you.
It's been a full year for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
exiting that brokerage, and we were the number one brokerage per transactions. Which it tells me that we would have been probably the number one team per transactions, but we weren't a brokerage. But just I say that to say that for us, keeping our agents' income just at the front of our radar all the time has been super important.
Did you guys hear that? This is one of the things I admire about him because all the conversation we have is how do we make him more productive? How do we make him more money? Because the thing that Eric understands is that when your agents are making money, they're not looking anywhere else. And because they're making money, everyone's looking at you to come work for you. One of the things I admire about Eric, he'll say, hey, I want you to work with this person. I hired him or her to do X. Okay. And then 21 days later, I'll get a text. They no longer work for me. I'm finding a new one
Yeah.
because he's under that Grant Cardone, hire quick, fire quicker. Because Eric is a move kind of guy, ready, fire, aim. And if they're not firing and then aiming, he's not interested. Fair statement, Eric?
Yeah, and on that note, Steve, I'll tell you, yes, and one of the things that allows us to resonate with our agents is, yeah, I've been an agent before, and I know, and for a long time, and I know the trials and tribulations and the highs and lows. Like today, you take you take a listing, and then the afternoon, escrow cancels. The next day, you have someone call you that wants to meet you, and then in the afternoon, that listing says, "Never mind, I'm not going to be able to sell. The relocation fell through." Like it is super highs, super lows, and you know, a lot of the agents feel like their brokers, their leaders, the managers, they don't go through those highs and lows. Let me tell
Right.
you, we all go through the highs and lows. We go through the same thing, and sells is sells is sells. Like we have to have just like a strong mental fitness daily for the people that we serve. You serve sellers, I serve agents. Your sellers are crazy, agents are crazy. I mean, it's the same thing, and so we have to continue to keep the things that I put into my head and the leadership team's head, positive, because there's inevitably going to be a bunch of negativity throughout the day. People will leave, clients will fire you, people will come, clients will hire you. Look, here's the key. Don't get too high when things are good. Don't get too low when things are bad. Just stay here, man. If you stay here, life is going to be beautiful. And not only that, if you stay here, no one will have the ability to mess with you mentally. No one will have the power to have one over you by saying, I'm going to leave you or I'm going to fire you. That would be unfortunate. It would really break my heart. But if that's your decision after everything we've discussed, and obviously after I've tried to retain the business, I wish you the best. There's no two ways about it. That's just how it is. And I think that mentality of continuing to prospect for, in my world, agents, in your world, listings, prospecting solves everything. So if you stay in that thought process and that mindset, you're gonna put yourself less in a place where you're vulnerable, and that's the key. You don't want to be vulnerable in this business. There's no place in this business for that type of vulnerability.
One of the things I've told Eric just before is that he reminds me of the movie Patton. Have you seen that yet, Eric?
So because we were getting ready for this, I saw it 2 weekends ago.
See, Patton is the same kind of Eric, a bit flamboyant, a bit out there, a bit aggressive, but to the troops. The thing was, during World War II, Patton would never retreat. And a reporter said to Patton, why is it you never retreat? And he said, because I don't want to pay for the same ground twice. Yep. Besides, it's really hard for the enemy to shoot at you when they're running away. Yep. And one of the things I love about Eric is that he's constantly reinventing and reattacking. And the people that are on his team see this leadership. And Eric hit it when he said, you're here. This was Patton. I mean, in the movie Patton, they said, oh, I guarantee there's no German Air Force anywhere. And then a minute later, the Air Force is strafing the town, and Patton walks out in the street and starts shooting a gun at the planes. And these are true stories. Yep. The troops saw him taking the bullets and shooting at the planes. You got to be like this. Because if your emotions are like this as a leader, guys, there's no trust, because they're looking for someone to take control. They're looking for someone when the boat is rocking to go, it's going to be fine. We're going to get through this. And Eric, everybody looks at him and goes, God, he's had a charmed life. He started when he's 15 and a half. He's making tens of millions of dollars. Let me tell you, when he decided to leave his former franchise, they did not want him to leave. And it wasn't because he made them a little bit of money. It's because they made him a lot. They made that franchise a lot of money, and they didn't want to give it up. Yeah. And there was lots of evenings and nights that Eric, sometimes you'd call me at 9:30 at night having a bad night because it's stressful. But again, this is the key of leadership. So how would you describe your leadership style, Eric?
I think that I lead how I was raised in the business. And when I was a kid, when I was cold calling for this mortgage broker, the biggest thing that they would say every single day, like the main message was, this ain't Burger King. You can't have it your way. If you don't like it, get the heck out, to be politically correct. And so I kind of lead that way. I mean, this either works for the people we're in business with or it doesn't. In what we do, look, here's one of the thoughts that came to mind, Steve. On brokerage side of things, I see like ice cream, different flavors of ice cream. So if you're a team lead or you're a broker or whatever this looks like, just hear me out for a second. People like pistachio, people like strawberry, people like vanilla, they like chocolate, right? It's all different, just kind of flavors of ice cream. But at the core, in its essence, ice cream is three real important ingredients. It's ice, sugar, and milk. And so that's what it is. Most brokerages offer the same thing. And so all we can do is have high levels and high degrees of inspiration for our people every single day. And that's what distinguishes us from company A, company B, company C, company D. Like, they're going to have some sort of variation on the economics of it. They're going to have some sort of variation on the color of the flag. They're going to have some sort of variation on what they do to bring value to realtors, we focus on having high levels of inspiration for our people, and it's served us well.
And that's your culture. And that's why people have called me and said, hey, I'm thinking of joining Eric. And I'm like, do it. I haven't told you. Do it. It's the best thing ever. There's nobody I know that went to Eric that lost money. And if you're thinking about switching, it's time to switch. Anytime you're thinking about switching brokers, it's like if you're married, I'm thinking about cheating on my spouse. You're already cheating. So if you're thinking about switching, you're already switching. So Eric, 5 years from now,
Yep.
what are we going to accomplish together? Where are we going to be?
So the 2025 goes $1 billion, only because if we hit $1 billion, Steve, it's very likely that at least 100 of our sales professionals made $250,000, meaning that 100 of them sold $10 million worth of real estate.
Right.
That's important to me. That would be 2025. Today, Steve, we are in different businesses. One of the ones that we're heavily focusing time and resources in is mortgage, which is why I'm in Irvine, California today, having a meeting and continuing the conversations down expanding the mortgage operations that we're currently in. I have to tell you, Steve, I don't know where we'll be in 5 years. But what I will tell you is this, is if you would have asked me a year ago, where would your life be today, February 20th, 2025, I would have never guessed that it's here. So that I all I know for a fact with every fiber in my body that life will be bigger and the people that are in my world's lives will be bigger.
And do you guys see why people join his company? I mean, this is a leader. And so, Eric, I said I'd keep you for 30 minutes. We have 3 minutes left. Whoever jumps in first gets to ask a question. No questions? Guys got it all figured out?
I got a question. This is Corey.
Go ahead, Corey.
Eric, thank you
Corey.
for talking. This was incredible. Wanted to ask you, you talked a lot about being a big thinker, and it's one of the things that I wrote down. You know, what's maybe one or two things you do daily or one or two books that you're reading that's really helped you think bigger?
So I've read over 700 books. I would say over 600 of them on Audible. I'm huge on Audible. So I regularly work out. When I say regularly, I mean that means 5 days a week. I'm at the gym for at least about an hour and a half. You can read a book a week easy. Most books are 4 to 5 hours. If you're not reading a book a week, you're doing the disservice to your business, your family. Today, I'm really high on Founders Podcast. And so if you also have some extra time and you enjoy listening to just a little more of like a conversational message. Okay. My buddy over there, Dave Senra at Founders Podcast, he basically does a write-up on the history's greatest founders, just night and day on the thoughts. Because what you don't understand is these people, they go through the same trials and tribulations that you do today. And what it really helps to see clearly is you could be anyone and anywhere you want to be in 5 years.
I love that, man. Thank you. Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Time for one more question.
Hey, Eric, I got one. It's Joe Villascusa. Hey, when you talk about delegation, what's the one thing that you think you delegate away the best?
So, Joe, thank you for commenting. Huge respect for you and the business you built. I'll give you an example. I mess things up when I get involved. So in the type of business you and I are in, so I don't cut checks, I don't do accounts payables, accounts receivables. I think about it, and I have, for example, today I have a CFO, a general manager, a broker record, just different people that are assigned to do so. And I'll tell you, you and I can have this kind of conversation because we're in the similar space. It does cost a lot of money. And I have been known to have a higher P&L than average. But what I learned is that I'm better off making a lower profit margin and have a higher P&L for quality talent that will get the job done right than risking fudging it up which history will say, if the history repeats itself, it'd say that I'm going to budget up every single day of the year. So everything that you could think of. In my mind, Joe, if I can make like 3 good decisions by about 10 o'clock in the morning before
I have nothing to
go
pick
to
up.
my meetings, it was a good day. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I thought it was supposed to be today.
What was that?
No, I was just somebody off mute
Oh,
for a
okay.
second.
Cool.
So Eric, I told you I'd take 30 minutes of your time, and so I'm going to cut it because I know how much you make per minute because I constantly drill that into your head. So I thank you for the about $25,000 of time you gave up for everybody here today. So I think you made a difference for us, Eric, and anyone out there who lives in Eric's area and you're thinking it's time for a change. You do no better than to talk to this guy. He will change your life. Eric, thanks
Appreciate
so
you,
much for
Steve.
your
Thank
coach.
you,
You're
everybody.
incredible.
Have a wonderful rest of the day.